That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you?
Sam, coming off one of the greatest segments of all time last week, man. No pressure.
No pressure. We'll try. We'll try to shriek and scream.
I can't see it like the Hobbit.
Yep. That's right. My wife was just calling me a hobbit this week too.
No.
She is. She's like, "You're short." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
I mean, listen, Sam. I've.
Oh, that is
incredible. This is late, obviously, but like, did you see that clip of James Franklin arguing with the fans?
Oh yeah,
last week.
Yeah,
the guy that was dressed in all. I'm like, that guy's a troll. He's dressed in all green, with a green tracksuit and a cabbie hat. He's about 5'2". James Franklin screaming at him.
So you know what?
The guy just walks away, and I'm like, "What in the? That's the strangest fan confrontation I've ever seen."
I gotta ask you something.
And he looked like a hobbit.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Franklin has kind of had some classic little low-key meltdowns in the media.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in just this year, right?
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
And he's a
different guy.
I want to get into this coaching personality in their team, though. This is on the heels of me talking about Campbell kind of being a CEO, but Detroit takes on his personality. I'm going to give you a couple of teams, and I want you to tell me how close you think they resemble the appearance of their coach's personality. And I'll start with Penn State.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think they kind of match their coach's personality. They have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they seem to, I think Franklin's organized, and I think he's intense, and they win all the games they're supposed to win. But they don't win the biggest games. They don't beat the best teams on the schedule. They haven't done that since Franklin's been there. They've only done it once when they beat Ohio State in 2016, and then they won the Big Ten title. It's the only time they've won the biggest games on their schedule.
Indiana.
Oh, yeah. I think that guy he's interesting. I think Indiana is playing really, really well, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. I can see that maybe some other schools kicked the tires on him, and they probably were like, yeah, we don't want to deal with this guy. You can just tell. He's probably not the easiest person to deal with. He seems a little aloof. He seems like he's a little rough around the edges, and he's perfect for Indiana. Like, I thought about, Michigan could have hired this guy, and Michigan wouldn't have liked him. They would have thought he was too arrogant or too something. And you can just tell that his personal manner probably cost him a job along the way. But now it has him in an incredible position at Indiana. He's going to be there a while.
All right, two more. LSU.
So I listen to Brian Kelly's press conference. I do this a lot. I listen to the
me
press conference.
Too.
Yeah, and he's just, I don't know.
They play like he talks.
Fraudsters.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yep.
Like they I'll let you expound, Sam, but I think you may know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean I think. Yeah, there's some games they play really, really well, and some games they don't. And I think it always feels like he's an angry dad, kind of walking around and getting mad at everybody, and I think they're affected by that. And he's really smart. Like, Brian Kelly's a really smart guy. That's evident by the way that he talks and just all those things. So he's not like a meathead. He's not, he's really smart. And I just think the team is negatively affected by, his level of criticism and his level of irritation with them. I don't know that he's the easiest coach to work for. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things there.
Last one, and this is on the heels of his infamous I don't know answer to a couple of questions on his pod. Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, his teams play like they don't know how to finish games. And, Lincoln Riley's won a lot of games in his career, so he's not he's not defined solely by this season at USC, but there seems to be an uncertainty with his happiness.
Yeah.
And I think his team plays like it's a little uncertain.
This is interesting, Sam. So Friday, and I pride myself on like knowing data, like numbers. And I said something to Ravi off air. I'm like, I gave him the impression that Lincoln Riley has, by the way we treat him and the way we talk about him, I gave Ravi the impression that he's lost more games than he has. And I said, man, it feels like he's been bad as long as he's been good. This is off air, and Ravi he goes, no, I don't know about that. So he goes to Google. He's won a ton. Like,
yeah. It's like 92 and 28 or something.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And we talk about Lincoln, like, so I'm like, God, I was dead. I was dead wrong. But it seems, but he's treated like he's much worse of a coach than the data would lead us to believe.
Well, he's playing in the Big 12 too. We got to be honest about that league, and I'm sure there's some part of Nebraska that laments having left it. Now, nobody's going to say that out loud because, of course, the Big 10 is a better fit financially and stability-wise. But Nebraska would have won a lot more games in the Big 12 over the last 8 years. They would have. I mean, Colorado was in the Pac-12 last year, and everybody told everybody how good the Pac-12 was, and it was. It was really good. And I think they went 4-8. And they leave that league and they go to the Big 12 and they lost by 3 to Kansas State, but they've run through everybody else. And they're probably going to finish 10-2. And I think Colorado's a better team than last year because their defense is better. But that tells you everything you need to know about the Big 12. Like Oklahoma went from the Big 12 to the SEC and they can't move the football. They can't move the ball. And Texas has been fine, I guess. I mean, they've got a $30 million roster. They ought to be fine, but we don't know how Texas is going to end the season. They're going to go play Texas A&M. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. So I think some of what Lincoln Riley did was in the Big 12. And then he goes to the Pac-12, and it was really good last year, and they weren't very good. And the Big 10 is brutal. USC has had the hardest schedule, perhaps in the nation, and it's really hard. It's hard to go win at Michigan and Minnesota. It's hard to beat Penn State on your home field when Penn State's really good. They should have beat Maryland, and I think that's the one game where you're like, that's the game that's an indictment. But it's really hard to do this stuff in an 18-team league where everybody has money. And Lincoln Riley, everybody kind of said, well, he's running away from the SEC. As it turns out, he joined the SEC. It's just called the Big Ten. And the teams in the Big Ten are really good.
Was that
Nebraska has to contend with it too?
That might have been you. There weren't very many people in Indianapolis yet. It was in the morning, and I said Lincoln Riley strikes me as the type of dude that has to win in this league to shake the SEC.
The running from the SEC narrative.
Remember that and I'm like, so I don't know if he can win enough for that, Sam. If we believe what we believed then, which was, I think we both felt like, well, yeah, kinda, because he was super chippy at the podium before he even took the podium, and this was after I had asked you the question with just the two of us standing over there.
Yeah, he was very chippy, and I think he probably felt a little defensive, and now it's harder to say some of those things because of what they have and haven't accomplished this season. And again, it's going to be really challenging in this league. And I'm not trying to diminish anything that Indiana's done. I think, you have to credit them. They didn't have to play Penn State, Oregon, or Ohio State yet. They will. They're going to play Ohio State in 2 weeks, but they didn't have to play those teams. So they don't know. I mean, they're good and they're going to make the playoff, and that's great. But they didn't have USC schedule. If they did, I don't think they would be 10-0. I think they'd probably be 7-3, and a great story, but not 10-0. So some of the thing that they're going to have to navigate and figure out as they go along is how these schedules play out, because there's some really unbalanced schedules out there. If you look at the way Michigan State ends its season, I think they end Illinois, Rutgers, Purdue. Illinois ends Michigan State, Rutgers, Northwestern. That's just Purdue, on the other hand, has in November Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana. Like, that's brutal. So they're going to have to figure out how to balance those things, I think, a little bit going forward. There's certainly some teams that have benefited from an easier schedule. And then you have USC and UCLA. Obviously, UCLA is a better team than its record, but they had to play the teams they had to play. Some of that was their choice. They didn't have to go play LSU. I don't know why they're doing that. And they probably won't do it going forward. But, there's clearly a big logjam of teams after the top four. We don't exactly know which one of those teams is the best yet because the schedules have been imbalanced.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. Sam, of guys that are at big-time jobs, who, and I'm going to give you 4, who would you like to give the longest leeway to? We'll start with the guy we're just talking about, Lincoln Riley. Let's go Brian Kelly at LSU, Brent Venables at Oklahoma, or Mike Norvell at Florida State.
Of those ones, who should get the most grace?
Yeah, like kind of what order would you give in, like, hey, I'm definitely riding with this guy, to if they got rid of him tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked.
Huh.
Norvell, the most.
The most grace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Followed by Riley, Kelly, and Venables. So I would give Venables the least. And that's not because he's
got no track record out as a head coach.
Yeah, exactly. That's not going to work. And everybody can see it. Defensive coordinators, they struggle to find quarterbacks. They played 94 quarterbacks this year. This happens all the time with defensive coaches. And you can go back and look at it. It happens all the time. They struggle to handle the offensive stuff. They go back and forth with quarterbacks. Almost all defensive coordinators, sooner or later, they're like, well, we got to go with the mobile quarterback because I don't like defending the run, so I got to go to a guy that can run. And then they put the guy in the run, and he can't throw. And this is exactly what happened at Oklahoma. Then that guy's not any good, and they got to put the other guy back in. So that happens all the time. So Venables, I think, is the one that's – I mean, they could let him go after this year, and I don't think anybody down there would be too upset. I mean, Brian Kelly, this is his last go-around as a head coach, and you just have to decide how long you want to see it. Now, he's a good recruiter, so they've got some good players coming in, and they're young. So maybe you give him another year. And then Riley, I don't know. Who else is USC going to go get? Who wants to live out there? Who wants to do the travel schedule that
USC has? You don't mean that, do you? Who else could they go get?
Or who else wants to live in L.A.? Because I think a lot of people.
James Franklin might go. I don't know. You'd have to pay him a lot of money.
I don't know, man.
Who really wants to travel out there? Who really wants to live out there? Who really wants to travel, over across 4 time zones to play a football game? Who really wants to coach in a stadium that's going to be half full unless you're winning all the time?
Well, I'll tell you in 2 years when I think when the economy resets. How about that?
Well, to see, I'm like it's going to be a hard pull for all those teams out there except Oregon. Oregon, I think, has got it going. But all the other teams, it's not going to be easy for them to live in this world.
Sam,
and again,
you said something I think a lot of people think. A lot of people agree with you. How was Oregon the anointed one of the new 4 with the least amount of history?
Because they have money and they have commitment.
Isn't that weird, though? I mean, and it wasn't just because of the way that they were built this year. I think for the last couple of years, Oregon was like the darling.
Yes.
And it's
Eugene. They fill their stadium. They have good fan support. At USC, you have horrible fan support with high expectations, which is the worst combination you can have.
Well, you wait till the Trailblazers get it going, Sam.
If you have a situation at USC where you have a team that's expected to win 10 or 11 games and then they don't, and then the fans don't show up, I just think it's a hard job. Maybe James Franklin will be ready to go there. I don't know why he would, other than he wants to go live in Los Angeles. I'm not trying to knock Los Angeles. I think it's one of the great cities in the world, especially Hollywood, all that stuff. I'll enjoy going out there. I don't know that I would want to live there. It's a giant city. You're probably commuting to work 30 minutes every day. Your stadium's half full. Who wants to play in front of a half full stadium? And that's what you're doing there, because, when they play NFL games at SoFi, whether it's the Chargers or the Rams, the other fan base has more fans there. It's just the city doesn't care about sports, except for the Lakers, maybe the Clippers, and the Dodgers. They don't really care about football in California anymore. So why coach there?
Yeah. I'm listening. I'm okay. I sat up on the front of my seat for that part. Okay,
I still think more people will live in Los Angeles than Eugene.
I want to get back to coaching personality traits and what teams need from their head coach. If Nebraska is going to take a couple of character traits from Coach Rule this weekend, what will those be to give them the best chance of success?
I think just a play in and play out intensity and intensity and
so his intensity.
It's consistency and intensity,
because he's definitely that.
So, and I don't mean that I don't think he flies off the handle the way Bo used to. Like, Bo was intense, but it was supernova intense, and then he would sort of blow it out, and then he would be morose Bo. So it would come out and be and then it would be, it would be this other thing.
I've said
and
this.
I don't think rules like that.
I've said this before because they do have some similarities, but I mean this because knowing both guys pretty well, Coach Rule better than Bo, but it's close. Bo was hypersensitive and hyper paranoid. Coach Rule may be paranoid with some things to some degree, but he's not very sensitive, right? It doesn't manifest itself the same way.
It's hard to be both and survive.
It's almost impossible because you'll become victim to your environment. Coach Rule is a little bit better at not being as reactionary from a sensitivity standpoint. I think that's the fundamental difference in their levels of competitiveness, because I think
that's fair.
They both were uber competitive. Coach Rule even texts with intensity. It's you know what I mean?
They need his consistency of intensity.
Yeah.
I think, he doesn't.
I like
that. He doesn't go overboard, I think, often, but he's also never blasé. I think he's got a lot of intentionality to what he does. And then, the larger question of how things going forward, I do think that the way that they want to play offense as of last, 2 weeks ago, in order to play that way, you really, really need to have a full intentionality on every play, and there has to be a great execution, and you also have to have the players for it. You have to.
He said it would take extreme focus.
Yeah, I think the offense is wonderful when it has all the pieces. I really, and this is something I would be curious to pick your brain on. The way that some of the running plays hit, whether it's the backs and whether they're doing the right thing, or where the plays hit, or is there a crease? Are they hitting the crease? What exactly is going on sometimes? I think that's a confusing portion for me. I think there's just times when I watch them and I think, the run game just seems a little harder than it should. There just doesn't ever seem to be a big hole. And I'm not saying that there usually is, but every so often there should be a giant hole that just is wow, look at that. They hit it right. The team blitzed into the wrong spot, and there it is. There's a 5-yard hole. And that happened all the time during the Mike Riley era, all the time. And it just doesn't feel like it happens with these guys. They don't run into a play. They don't run into a 50-yard run because somebody misfit. It always feels like everything is 7 or 4 or 3. They hit a big run against Purdue with Ja'Cory Barney, but it took a lot of action and reverse stuff. Just doesn't feel like the run game hits the way that it should. I don't know why, but it just doesn't.
Sam, as we go into the first week, and I forgot that we hadn't actually talked to you since the Dana Holgorsen news came down, because it happened right after we had you last Monday. What tangible things do you expect to see, whether it's this week or just throughout the rest of the season, since the Dana Holgorsen hiring?
I think you can play with better attention to detail. I think you can play with more intentionality, a little bit better pace. I think your receivers can get better at some of those things, and he may be able to come in and make an assessment of everybody on board and say, this is what you guys can do. I think there might be something that you can do with the deep passing game, some concepts, some things that you can work out. I mean, he's done a lot of those things. Maybe half rolls, get Dylan a little bit on the move, and then get him set up with a nice platform, so that he can throw the deep ball with intention, with pace and power. There's been some times when Dylan's taking a shotgun snap and he's just sort of jogged 2 or 3 steps backward, and he just doesn't have urgency with his footwork, and it just doesn't seem like he knows exactly what's going to happen in that moment. And sometimes you just need to set up a play that says, this is what this play is going to be. We're going to half roll you, and there's going to be 3 men on the route, and the one guy that you want to go is here. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what he's going to accomplish, and some of what he's able to accomplish will be dependent on how they play at USC. They need success there. Even if they don't win the game, if they go out there and they score 24, 27 points, they could very well lose the game 31-27. USC has players on offense, and I don't really care who their quarterback is. They got players. But if they go out there and they score 24, 27 points, then everybody can kind of look around and go, okay, we're a little bit better. We lost the game, but we're back, and now we can go play at Wisconsin and Iowa feeling a little better about ourselves. We'll just have to see what happens. Some of it is contingent on success. You have to see success with changes, and so we'll see if it happens.
I think that 9.5 has to be. I think a lot of that has to do with like the narratives, like what surrounds each program. SC at home coming off a bye, Nebraska coming off a bye, and historically has not fared well. And I don't even know if I'd call this high profile. It's a helmet game, but it's flying under the national radar in terms of importance. I don't know. I just think USC gets the benefit of the doubt because they're USC.
Yeah, their metrics are better than Nebraska's. So they have the win over LSU. I think that's probably a slightly better win than the win over Colorado. It does. But Nebraska's win over Colorado does too.
Nebraska's win over Colorado is better than SC's win over LSU.
I don't know. I think they're about equal. Yeah, I do. I think Colorado had a very hard challenge that night playing in Memorial State. Yeah. And LSU didn't have, USC didn't have to do that. They had to play in a neutral site. So I don't know. But they're probably, let's just say they're about equal.
I could be biased. I don't know.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think USC's metrics are a little different. I mean, they really did take Penn State to the wire. They played a hell of a game. Probably should have won the game. Didn't. And then, they played really well at Michigan, lost the game. Played pretty well at Minnesota. So, I mean, there's, they beat Wisconsin easily. So, there's some metric things in there that probably inform that. But at this moment, I think Nebraska can win that game. They're going to have to play well. I think USC, again, they got players. And as I always like to say, wide receivers like to play every game if it means they're going to have a good game. And it's almost like you're using their self-interest for your team. I've never seen a wide receiver that said, I'm not going to go out today and catch 200 yards worth of passes because we're not very good. Yeah. Don't go catch passes. So USC has guys that'll go out and do that. And if Nebraska's not careful, the new quarterback will come out and he'll throw the ball to those guys, and those guys will run into the end zone, and they won't blink. They'll be like, let's just go score 40 today. So Nebraska has to be really on point defensively, because if these guys get an idea that they can take over, they can run over Nebraska, they will.
That's Sam McKewon from Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Hey, take care.